Hello ladies, welcome to April program. So this is the demo video that you're gonna get anything you need to know from. So I'm gonna show you every exercise in every workout, any modifications, tips or tricks. If you ever see something and I don't show a modification for it, but you can't do it, you can message me and I will help you out. All right, so we are on week 1, Monday the 4th, and we're starting with a lower body workout. So it's gonna be 5, 6, or 7 rounds. What that means is you're gonna choose 5, 6, or 7 rounds. That's up to you. And we have 10 deadlift to air squat, 12 skier swings, 14 goblet squats, and then for part 2, we have up and overs. So I'm gonna do a demonstration when I first start my videos of all the exercises so that if you know it or you just didn't remember the name of it and you see it and you know it, then you can move on. For everybody else who needs further explanation, I will then continue to explain every exercise, okay? So deadlift to air squat, skier swings, goblet squat. Back up. Deadlift to air squat. I'll show it from the side as well. Skier swings. So this is your typical kettlebell swing, but instead you have your arms up to the side. So it's your swing, you're holding the weight differently, that's all. And then our goblet, and then our up and overs. Okay, so the first one I showed was the deadlift to air squat. So it's kind of combining 2 different moves together. So I'm gonna explain them both separate. So your air squat just means a squat with no weight, so a body weight squat. So what that looks like is like this. So when you do a regular squat, usually your feet are shoulder width or a little bit wider apart. Your toes are pointing forward or slightly outward, and you're just gonna let your butt drop to the ground, and the weight of your body is gonna go to the heels of your feet. So you don't wanna be up on your toes, you don't wanna lean way forward over, and you don't wanna hunch. You're just gonna drop your butt to the ground, keep your back up, your shoulders back, your head straight, and like I said, you're gonna kind of shift that weight to your heels. So you should feel very stable on your feet when you're doing a squat. That's why if you ever see on social media, a lot of people are obsessed with weightlifting, or at least for leg day, using like Converse or Vans or sneakers that you wouldn't expect, but it's because they're super flat. So it helps you stay really sturdy versus like if you were wearing a running shoe and you were trying to do heavy squats or something. A lot of times, because of the way that the sole is shaped, it's harder to be balanced. So anyways, so that's just your typical air squat. You also want to make sure with your knees that they're not turning in. You want to make sure that they're, if anything, going out. So it's okay if they're really forward, but typically you want them to bow even a little bit outward. And again, just make sure that your toes, you make sure that you don't have anything funny going on where you might be pointing in, you don't want your knees pointing in. Everything should be forward or out, okay? So your deadlift, typically this is done with a barbell, and sometimes it's tricky to explain. So that's why I like to do it this way, where you have to pick them up off the floor. That, I think, makes it the easiest. So I'm gonna show you from the front. So you get a nice wide stance. You're gonna bend over to grab the weight, and when you bend, you are not going to bend like this, okay? You're gonna bend like this. So when you do deadlifts, your butt is actually up off the heels of your feet, and it's going back to the wall behind you, not to the floor. So that's the main difference between a squat and a deadlift. A squat, your butt is always dropping to the floor. A deadlift, your butt is always going back, okay? So even if you are really low, like we're about to be, grabbing these weights, your butt is still gonna be up. It's not gonna come down like this. It's gonna be up away from the heels of your feet, okay? So that's where people get confused. They think a lot of times that the squat and the deadlift look the same, and they might look the same sometimes, but that's the key way of knowing what you're doing. If your butt is going toward the ground, you're doing a squat. If your butt is going back, you're doing a deadlift, okay? So your deadlift, like I said, you're gonna bend down and grab them, but you're gonna make sure your butt is not down here. Your butt's up in the air. You should feel it pull on your hamstrings, going all the way from your butt down to your knees. You should feel that pull. And then you're gonna stand up nice and straight, squeeze your butt a little bit, drop them back down in the same way, don't hunch down. And you're gonna stand, air squat, stand. Bend over to grab your weights. Your butt is up in the air toward the wall behind you. Grab your weights, squeeze your butt a little bit, put them back down the same way. Stand, air squat. I'll show you from the side. So notice where my butt goes when I pick these up. It's up. My back is straight, okay? Grab them. That's your deadlift. Down, up, air squat. Grab them, deadlift, up, squat. Grab, up, squat, okay? So this is how you count it. 1, 2, okay? Sorry. Next we have skier swings. So you've probably seen or done kettlebell swings before. Usually in our program, because I don't show anything with kettlebell, we do a dumbbell. So your typical swing looks like this. You've probably seen it before. Kettlebells are getting pretty popular. So you've probably seen people do these, right? These are called kettlebell swings. So what we're doing is called skier swings. So instead of holding 1 or 2 even dumbbells between your legs or a kettlebell between your legs, you hold the weight out to your side. So it's the same motion, but you're holding the weight to your side. So it looks like this from the front. Looks like this from the side. So my arms are totally straight and they're just going back and forth. And my body is doing very similar to what I just talked about in a deadlift. I'm not squatting down. My butt is going back toward the wall. So swings and deadlifts have a lot of similarities. So with a swing, with your arms out to your side, they're gonna follow your body. So it's almost like a pendulum. So your butt is gonna go back to the wall, your back is gonna come down, but it's gonna be straight. So my back comes down, and it's basically, I'm hinging at my hip. My back is, or torso is hinging at my hip, coming down toward the ground. My butt is going back to the wall, and my knees are bent. That doesn't have to be super bent, okay? So again, my butt's going to the wall, my back is hinging down, and then you come up. Except when you're swinging, you have more motion. So it's very, very similar to our deadlift, but with the swing, you have more hip motion. You have a thrust in there. So your body is going like this. So down, up, down, thrust, and your arms are just following your body, and you're holding weight, okay? So that is your skier swing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for your goblet squat. Your goblet squat is the same explanation as your air squat, except you're holding a weight. So everything I just said about your squat is the same, except you're gonna grab a dumbbell and you're gonna put your palms underneath the top and wrap your hands. And then you're gonna rest it. I actually rest it right on my chest. Some people like to hold it out. I just feel like it's more work. I like to rest it. So I rest it right on my chest. 1, 2, 3. So the same exact thing, except you're holding a weight in the center of your chest. So be careful when you're holding a weight that you don't end up dropping down forward like this, just because you have a weight. If the weight is too heavy, lower the weight, or you can also use no weight, but you don't want the weight to drag you forward. You still want to have a nice straight back when you're doing your squat. So I'm going to show you as well any squat variation that I have in my program, you can also use a chair. So this is good for somebody that has bad knees, for somebody maybe who doesn't have good balance, or somebody who doesn't have good depth. And when I say depth, that means how low that you are squatting. So sometimes when people are new to squatting, they just don't know where they are in space, and they don't know how far to go, and they usually do it too shallow. So if you have something that your butt can tap, and you know that you've gone low enough, then you're gonna get better at depth. So, for example, your air squat, you can tap and go, which would look like this. So this, again, would be really good for somebody who's not sure how deep they're going. Once you hit it, you know you're good. So a lot of times people would go like this. That's not low enough, you didn't hit it. So once you hit it, you know that you're there. So that's called tap and go. Second option would be a full sit. So you would do a full sit, stand up. Full sit, stand up. So you can do the same thing with your goblet squat. Full sit, stand up. The only thing you want to be careful with a full sit is that when you sit, you don't actually relax into the chair. You have to keep your form the same and just sit and stand. So again, air squat, any variation of squat that we do, weighted squat, not weighted squat. The only thing that you can't do in a chair if you have to do a full sit is like anything that I would call like pulsing or pausing or quick pulse, because once you sit down, it takes the weight off of you, so it's not gonna work. So if we were ever to do something where you're supposed to bounce, you can still tap and go, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, up, but once you sit, there's nothing else you can do except for stand again. So that's the only problem. So if you're somebody who does have to end up doing a lot of full sit in the chair squat modifications, you might want to just make sure that you're always doing them weighted, so it's a little bit more difficult, or try to come up with some way so that you're not, or a different leg exercise in general, so you're not always just doing a sit to a chair if that gets boring for you, okay? Now, we did those. That's our part one. I try to signify the parts by the star and the underline. So if you only see one thing that's star and underline, like Tuesdays, like tomorrow's workout, it only has one part. Today has two parts. So part two is up and overs, and you're gonna do between 50 and 100 reps. So, and if you're unfamiliar, if you look at your workout sheet, the number in front of your exercises is called your reps, okay? So, we have up and overs 50 to 100. So that, again, you're going to pick how many. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times whatever we do, it needs to be an even number because you're doing something like both ways or both sides, so you want to make sure it's even. So even if we're not, I typically pick an even number. Like I would always think in my mind, 50 is okay, but I would always think 60, 80, or 100. That's just how I am. But so, say we pick 60. What you're gonna do is you're gonna start on one side and you're gonna go up and over, 1, 2, 3, until you get to 60. So that does not mean you have to do 60 all the way through. You can absolutely take breaks, do it however you want it, but you still have to do 60, okay? So with the up and over, you don't need a weight in front of you, but it just gives you something to go up and over, like as a visual. So you're gonna start like this. So you're gonna be leaning back on your arms, on your palms, and your legs are gonna be out in front of you. So you're gonna start on one side of the weight, and you're gonna lift your legs up and over, 1, up and over, 2. So when you do this, you wanna almost crunch and engage your core when you lift your legs up. So kind of crunch, crunch, and I even almost like push forward when I do it. I kind of go like this, forward, forward, crunch, crunch, okay? So that's what your up and over is. The straighter your legs are, the more difficult it is, okay? The more bent your legs are, the easier it is, okay? So the farther away your legs are from you, the harder. The closer they are to your body, the easier, all right? So that is your Monday the 4th.